Hey, what is going on, everybody out there? This is Jakejames Lugo. So today there's not going to be any sort of crazy prep. We're going to dive right into things with this new video review because today we're talking about Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom. Now I do have to preface this by saying big shout outs to Bandai Namco and Level 5 for giving me an early copy of the game to bring you guys this video review, as well as also a written review over on thecoalition.com. There'll be links in the description box below so you guys can read it by the time you see this video. So Ni no Kuni 2 is very interesting for me specifically because I didn't have a lot of time to preface this review or any of my time playing the game with any experience whatsoever from the first Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch. I know a lot of people love that game and have spoken very highly of it, but I kind of came into Ni no Kuni 2 without any preconceived notions other than the stuff that I saw in the trailers. And really what I found there is something really special, something really interesting, and I can't wait to dive into the talk about it. So without further ado, this is Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom.
Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom is the sequel to the PS3 game Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch. Its story is set hundreds of years after the first game and follows the hero with a whole new story in a place called Ding Dong Dell. The main character this time around is a young boy named Evan Pettywhisker Tildrum, a boy who's set to be king, but is overthrown by an enemy from the Mouse tribe in Ding Dong Dell, forcing him to flee his home and set out on a great adventure. Along the way, Evan comes across many other characters that aid him throughout the story, including Roland, a man who appears from another world, and Tani, a young girl who comes from a clan of sky pirates. The game is developed by Level 5 Inc. and published by Bandai Namco, and interestingly enough, is worked on in collaboration with former Studio Ghibli animator Yoshiyuki Momose, who worked on Princess Mononoke, Porco Rosso, and Spirited Away, and musical composer Joe Hisaishi, who made music for many Studio Ghibli films like Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, Porco Rosso, Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, Princess Mononoke, and My Neighbor Totoro.
Now, I'm not going to get into any spoiler stuff. I'm not going to kind of spoil anything of major plot points or anything like that because I do have to adhere to the embargo details. But also, I feel like it's important that you guys go into this story without anything really spoiled for you. One of the biggest things that I find that's cool about this story is that not only is it kind of really intricate and has a lot of stuff happening that really makes sense and really kind of, has a good full circle kind of storytelling design to it, but it also kind of plays on a lot of different emotions. It can be really cheeky and really kind of, lighthearted and childish in some points, but then also at the same time complemented with some sort of serious nature going on with the kingdom of Ding Dong Dell. One of the things I also thought was very cool is that the characters, Evan, Roland, Tani, and the rest of the cast were characters that I really started to really gravitate towards, even without spending a lot of time with them. I didn't feel like they were really kind of, one-dimensional. I didn't feel like that they were really cheesy or kind of unlikable by any stretch of the imagination. What I really love is the growth that we see from Evan throughout the course of his adventure. The story is primarily focused on him, even though we still get other perspectives and other different things that happen in relation to some of the other characters as he's trying to build up his kingdom of Ding Dong Dell and really come into his own as the ruler of the land. But one of the things I also thought was very cool is that we still get enough of the other characters to get a lot of shine and to get a lot of spotlight put onto them that really still doesn't really necessarily have to do with Evan himself, but still complements and kind of goes parallel to everything that's going on in the land of Ni no Kuni. But with that being said, though, one of the best things that I really want to focus on with Ni no Kuni 2, and as far as talking to you guys about it, is the combat system and the actual gameplay itself.
Playing Ni no Kuni 2 is a real joy. Everything from the controls to the movement and even the small details in the menus is great to just soak in and appreciate. Exploring the environment and the world map is good, with lots of spots to investigate and discover items and other hidden secrets. The fighting is where I feel Ni no Kuni 2 shines the most. The story is great and all, but the combat is really solid. It's fast-paced and exciting, and yet still challenging when it needs to be without compromising the fun factor. You can control any of the characters in your party by switching out the order they are in from the menus, giving you many options to take on groups of enemies or big boss fights. What's even better is how easy it is to use special abilities and magical attacks by just holding down the trigger and hitting a face button. Fighting is done in real time like any other action RPG, but you can also hit the touchpad to stop things briefly and use items to keep yourself from getting wrecked up too badly. I honestly really like this kind of combat and appreciate how smooth things can go despite so many enemies appearing on screen at once. The difficulty for leveling up isn't bad at all, but there are moments when you're going to need to boost yourself up before taking on some of the tougher battles and crazier boss fights later in the game. But in doing so, you'll be treated with combat that is smooth, easy to control, and a joy to look at play out. Which also brings me to the visuals of Ni no Kuni 2. They really are spectacular. The Studio Ghibli inspiration and aesthetic is definitely strong here, and it works out beautifully alongside everything else in the game.
The combat kind of reminds me a little bit of Tales of Symphonia or any of the Tales games if you've ever played those. Again, this is coming from Bandai Namco, which publishes those games, and you can see a lot of the parallels and a lot of the similarities between both series. And I really feel like with Ni no Kuni 2, it kind of excels as not only, being seamless in the battles when you go into different areas, but also in the way that things just run so smoothly. It doesn't get, any sort of kind of like, feel restrictive. It doesn't feel like, your movement or your attacks are just locked in place, or you feel like you're running through water or anything. Everything feels so good to play with and feels so good to use, especially with the magical spells, as well as also your other physical attacks in relation to all the characters. And speaking of all the characters, I love it that I can control everybody in the party. Even though you still have just that 3-person group, as far as the top people in your party when you go into battles, it's still very cool that I have the option to control whichever one that I want. I'm not restricted just to Evan, or just to Roland, or just to Tani, or any of the other cast members that you run into. It still is pretty cool to be able to do that, and then have their own equipment sets and everything else related to them.
Now, I can't forget to mention the Higgledies and other gameplay you experience in Ni no Kuni 2. The Higgledies are spirit-like creatures that aid you in battle with various magical abilities, buffs, and team attacks during battle. They remind me of the spirits from Princess Mononoke, but have a little bit more of an attitude and pack more of a punch against your enemies. You could find different kinds of Higgledies all over the world in Ni no Kuni 2, each with different abilities and perks to having them with you in battle. There's also the army battles that occur at various points of the game. These are like extra mini-games that allow you to conquer territory around the world map, but they don't play out like normal battles do. You control a group of soldiers that accompany you on the world map and command them to fight enemies and take down structures nearby, all in hopes of capturing objectives and expanding Evan's kingdom. These battles aren't tough, but they are mandatory to complete at certain points of the story. Good thing they aren't too tedious when you need to engage with them.
Now, I have to say, about the world of Ding Dong Dell and the world of Ni no Kuni 2, it is very large. There's a lot of stuff to do, a lot of places to explore, and a lot of secrets to uncover as you're exploring and going through the main story. There's other little side quests here and there that you could kind of get lost in. Nothing too crazy, because primarily the focus stays on the main story at hand, especially with the urgency of it, but there's still enough to do outside of that, and again, moments and places to go grind out and kind of, gather experience and other items and like materials that you need for specific weapons that doesn't feel like a waste of time. But even more so with that, again, you still feel like you have a lot of options to do different things in this large, vast world. I don't know the scale of the first Ni no Kuni game, but if it was anything along this level or along this lines of as far as size, scale, and amount of stuff that populates the entire world, I really dig this. I feel like it reminds me a little bit of some of the classic RPGs, and JRPGs like Final Fantasy IV, Final Fantasy VI, and even arguably some later RPG games that have come out on various different consoles. I love big worlds with my RPGs. I love the ability to travel to different places, on a whim, and be able to get to where I need to go with convenience without feel like I'm just wasting a lot of time just going from one place to another to get one stupid little item or complete one little quest. The other thing I really have to mention that I think is something that really shines with this game is its visual aesthetic. I love the visuals of Ni no Kuni 2. It is very reminiscent of like a Studio Ghibli production. Again, it's not related to Miyazaki whatsoever, but you can see a lot of the inspirations there, from the environments, from the characters, to the effects whenever you're in battle and in different attacks, to all the different sense of scale and some of the larger scale battles with boss fights, and anything else that happens along the story events and the cutscenes. It just looks great to look at, and it's just very colorful, everything pops out, everything has its own personality here and there, and it runs beautifully. I really believe that it runs at like a 60 frames per second kind of, frames per second, like, consistency. And I know in some spots it does lose a little bit of its its frames per second, but it still doesn't go to a point where it's like it looks completely like garbage. It looks very good almost 90 to 95% of the time, and I really appreciate that. The other thing I also do want to mention is the boss fights. I love the boss fights in this game. Some of them get pretty damn crazy, while some of them are also not as huge as others as far as relation to the plot, but they still are very, very cool to kind of engage with. And again, the creature design with some of the enemies, some of the big baddies that you run into, I think are really, really cool. They're well thought out, really detailed as far as like what they do with their actions, their attacks, the types of like, special elements and things that they kind of, utilize in battle. I think they're very, very freaking cool, and I think a lot of JRPG enthusiasts that really love good design with their games are really going to appreciate what's going on with Ni no Kuni 2.
I mean, seriously, look at some of the creature designs here for the enemies. I think they look really freaking cool. I think they're pretty damn dope. And I love it when RPGs, or any game for that matter, puts a lot of time and effort into the detail and the overall unique look for most of the enemies, especially if it's going to be a common enemy I'm going to run into frequently. Don't get me wrong, you still have those palette swaps, you still have very similar designs here and there in some of the different areas that you visit and the environments that you go to over the course of the story in Ni no Kuni 2. That's to be expected, but I love it when there's enough detail in there to mask that from me and to make me focus more on the battles at hand rather than the little things that kind of irk some people when it comes to lack of detail with enemies and other characters that you interact with throughout the course of a game's story. Something like this, that what's going on with Ni no Kuni 2 is really awesome, and I really appreciate a lot of the thought that went into the design for most of these monsters. And that's just some of the stuff that I can show you. A lot of the stuff that I can't show you when you guys finally pick up this game is really going to make your jaw drop and really going to make you smile when you're actually getting your butt kicked. Believe me, it happened a few times with me in a couple of the boss fights.
One of the things I do have to mention, again, as a spin-off from that, is that when things get a little bit too populated on the screen, when there's a lot of characters between the Higgledies, between the enemies, between your party, as well as also other effects that are happening and the craziness of the environment, the detail of it, things do start to slow down a little bit. It'll drop from like maybe 60 frames per second to like, 40 or 30 at that point, and sometimes even a little bit less than that, just enough to be noticeable, but it's not something that lingers for a long period of time, especially if you're taking out enemies and there's different characters going in and out of the screen. I love Ni no Kuni 2. I think that it's a phenomenal game. Again, I wasn't really expecting a lot of stuff. I know a lot of people hyped it up, but my expectations were low enough to really be impressed with a lot of the stuff that I saw while playing this game for review. One of the other things I also think is very, very cool that, again, I didn't really focus on too much in this review, but it should be mentioned, the soundtrack. The soundtrack really complements everything that's going on as far as in battle, in the worlds. It just is great to listen to. There's nothing too memorable as far as like musical tracks. Again, there is a couple tracks here and there that you're going to hear repetitively, but it's nothing like iconic of the sort, but it's still very, very good, very well produced, and it just, again, goes well with everything that's happening on screen. I love JRPGs that give me a lot. I love JRPGs that are great to look at. And I love JRPGs where I feel like there's enough happening with the characters. Even though I might not remember certain elements about them, I still appreciate checking out what's going on with them and never feel like I'm wasting time and never feel like there's something that just isn't going anywhere. Ni no Kuni 2 does a lot of good things right. And it feels really cool to play, feels really interesting to kind of, experience the entire story, as well as also just get lost in what it has to offer. This is what you want from a JRPG, or just any RPG for that matter. So that's my thoughts on Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video review. Again, I want to make sure that you guys are enjoying each of these videos I'm starting to upload. I'm trying to make this a weekly thing, like once a week, do a review on a brand new game or some other game that I wanted to talk about. It's a new direction for the channel. I know it's a little bit shocking for some of you guys out there, but let me know what's up in the comment section below, or hit me with a like on this video, and then subscribe to the channel so that way I can kind of get an idea if you guys love these videos and if you want to see more of them, or if you have suggestions of games that maybe I should review here on the channel. Again, I'm trying different things. I'm trying to make stuff very, very interesting for you guys and make it so that way, as I do more content, the channel can grow and we could kind of explore more cooler, amazing things to do here on the YouTube channel. So let me know what's up, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you guys again real soon.
Hey, thanks a ton for checking out this video, everyone. I really appreciate your guys' support. I really worked hard on this video review, and I really hope that you guys really enjoy and take a liking to it. Make sure you leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you can. If you want to see more dope videos just like this one, make sure you check out my previous video review of Yakuza 6, The Song of Life, as well as also my recommendations of 3 gaming books that all gamers need to own. They're really awesome videos that you'll get a lot out of just by watching, and I hope that you guys will enjoy them. With that being said, I will talk to all of you guys again real soon. Peace out, and stay epic, everybody.